Goeiemiddag. Na jare in die bediening voel dit vir my altyd ongemaklik om so 'n geleentheid te begin. Want die mens wil nie sê welkom nie, want ek dink nie een van julle wou nie wees nie. Mens neem nie graag afskeid van die man. En tog, weet ons almal, is dit 'n baie besondere geleentheid. En ons wil net iets meer daaroor sê. En die van Wyk Lou het gesê, mooi is die lewe, mooi is die dood. Nou as mense dit vir die eerste keer lees, dan dink ek, joh. En tog is dit so waar. Dit is eintlik sulke mooi woorde. Toe die Wiese het 'n boek daaroor geskryf, wat ek wel gesê het, wreed en mooi is die dood. Want soms is die dood ook wreed. Dis hartseer. Dis hartseer om iemand te verloor. J.J. Swart, die digter, het 'n aangrypende gedig geskryf wat vir my oor al die jare verskriklik baie sê. En ek lees dit graag vir julle. Die dood is wreed en brutaal. As hy mense deur geweld en rampe kom haal. Want Here, wat anders moet ek dink as 'n geliefde weg is of verwing? Die dood is dikwels ook 'n vriend wat ons aan U, o God, verbind. Wat ons uit smart en pyn kom haal, die einde van ons kruis bepaal. En Pieter, as ek dit lees, dan dink ek so aan Toepie. Ook in sy situasie was die dood eintlik ook 'n vriend, en dit ook 'n uitkoms. Dan kom die dood weer sag en teer, maar niemand kan sy gange keer. Waai deur ons harte soos die wind, gedagtes oor 'n geliefde kind. Tog bly die dood maar altyd swaar, want wie kan 'n geliefde spaar? Al sterwe ons stoksiel alleen, daar bly maar altyd een wat een. Miskien oor wat mooi was as kind. Miskien 'n herinnering aan 'n vriend. Miskien oor die huwelik wat eens bind. Miskien oor swak gesindheid en gees. Miskien oor alles wat was en gaan wees. Die gedig is so waar, en dit laat mense nogal diep dink. Die vraag is, by so 'n geleentheid kom ryk ons uit na mekaar. En ons kom ryk in die eerste plek uit na jou, Pietro, maar ook na die kinders, Alnerie en Thomas, Evert, waar is dit ek? Maar daar is dit Evert, daar is dit. Ek so netjies vandag. En dan die kleinkinders, vir Ethan, Rachel, Kira, so spreek ek het reg uit. Kira, en dan Julia en John. Die vraag is, waarom is ons hier? Om wat te doen? In die eerste plek, we are here to celebrate Toepie's life. En ons mag maar. As ek aan Toepie dink, dan dink ek altyd in die ou video om deur te glimlag. En dit altyd so gelyk of hy klaarpaad gedoen of op pad gevoerd het. Het altyd so 'n deende dag gegaan. And we are here to celebrate his life. En ons mag maar. Ons mag maar. Die tweede ding is, om deur die Here aangeraak te word. To be touched by the Lord. Want eintlik gaan vanmiddag nie oor Toepie nie. En dit het ons ook vanmiddag sê. Eintlik gaan vandag oor jou. Oor my. Oor ons eie verstaan van lewe en dood. Want op die einde kom Konfronteer Doopie se dood, confront it as with our own death. En wat maak ons moet dood? In die derde plek, om vir mekaar daar te wees. To be there for each other. En ons het dit in COVID tyd gesien, wat 'n ongelooflike hartseer dit was, dat mense met die afskeid van iemand wat gesterf het, nie by mekaar kon kom. En ek sien dit vanmiddag hier, was so kosbaar om daar te sit en dop te hou. Die liefde wat hier is, en om weer vir mekaar te kan sien. Want die dood bring ook mense by mekaar. Kom ons bid net saam. Here, ons is vanmiddag hier to celebrate Doopie's life. And thank you for his life. Toe u vir Doopie aan mekaar geweef het daar in sy moederskoot, het u iets spesiaals gemaak. Iemand vir wie ons kon lief hê, iemand saam met wie ons dinge kon doen en beleef. As husband, as vader, as oupa, as friend. En Here, ons sit ook vanmiddag hier en weet dat die dood, ook Doopie se dood, ook ons aanraak. En daarom het ons 'n behoefte om ook deur u aangeraak te word. En bid ons Here, mag u teenwoordigheid ook in hierdie oomblik baie spesiaal is. En dankie dat ons ook daar kan wees vir mekaar, juis in ons hartseer en in ons verlange. Dat ons mekaar se hartseer kan sien, saam kan beleef en ook 'n skouer van vertroosting kan wees. Seën vanmiddag se saamkoms. Amen. Kom ons begin met die lied wat oor Doopie baie lief was. Dis die lied van Koos Du Plessis. En hy het al die jare gesê, dit is vir een van die mooiste liedere. En kom ons sing dit saam terwyl ons so bly sit en ons sing al die verse dan daar. vir hulle geleentheid. Ons staan die mikrofoon en julle gaan kom.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ethan. I'm Duffy's oldest grandson. Let me start off by saying that this is probably the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. My Opa is my hero. He's my Superman. When I think about Opa, I think about a man who has given me more than I can ever imagine. Obviously, I'm not talking about money here. He gave me tools, and also, to be more specific, not any actual tools, but tools that I use every day. He taught me that nothing is ever really broken. Sometimes all you need is the right tools, some time, and a little bit of patience. That patience was tested when I was a kid. I always loved to go into his gun safe, point out a few of them and ask him, what they are. And he would give me a 10-minute history lesson on each of the guns and tell me exactly how he refurbished them. One day I asked him if he could buy me a gun. He then said, yes, of course. But right before I got super excited, he said to me, but only if you learn your times tables off by heart. My heart sank. I'm not good at maths at all. But I really wanted that pellet gun. So every time we saw Oman Opa for Sunday lunch, I would ask him to test me, and let me just say he did not go easy at all. It took me quite a few Sunday braais, but eventually I got it. And that next week he gifted me with a pellet gun, and we spent countless hours on countless Sundays shooting these little metal ducks in the garden before eating the best potjie in the world, one that required patience to make, by the way, because you would start cooking it at 8 o'clock in the morning. I remember being a teenager and him coming to our house to fix, something, because something's always broken. And without me even realizing it, he would get me the help. But not because he needed the help, but because he wanted to teach me. That man could quite literally fix anything. And he knew this, and I knew this, but I always asked questions because I knew that someday I would have to do it for myself. And sure enough, that day came when I moved to France for 3 months to try and make it on the yachts. But after a few weeks of trying, I was running out of money and getting quite desperate. So a few of my friends in the hostel told me about a British guy who hires South Africans to work in his French construction company. And after a couple of weeks of working for this company, the boss came to me at the end of one of our work days and told me to politely tell the other guys, of which there were 5, to not come back to work. I then asked him why, because I kind of needed the help. And he said, I've never seen a man your age with so much skill. Who taught you? And I replied, my Opa. He's the reason for my success in France. He's the reason that because of this, I built 2 houses in the south of France, and my signature is somewhere in the concrete. Every single time I saw Opa, he would always make an effort to ask me how I am, how my love life is, and he would always take a special interest in my business as a personal trainer. He knew that this was my passion, and even though he knew absolutely nothing about how PT runs his business, he would always want to talk about it with me and ask me questions, just like how I did with him. He would always ask me if I have a new client, and every time I would tell him, I've got a few more, and he would go, sure, well done my boy, lekker, I'm so proud of you. I know my Opa was proud of me, but not because he's my Opa, because he would always tell me. Opa, thank you for teaching me. Thank you for being there for me. Thank you for loving me. And thank you for showing me what it is to be a man. I love you and I miss you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to celebrate the amazing man our Oaks is. It's truly special to see how many lives he's touched and just how many people honor his impact with the simple gesture of being here. My name is Rachel.
I'm Julia.
And we'll be speaking on behalf of the rest of the grandkids.
Our Opa taught us more than we ever realized. We honestly can't remember a time where he wasn't happy. He was always willing to lend a hand with his incredible engineering skills, and if something was broken, our Oaks would find a way to fix it. Going hand in hand with his generosity is his kindness. He treated everyone with respect, warmth, and care. And the most amazing part about him was that he never had to sit us down to teach us these things. He simply lived them so consistently that we couldn't help but learn from him. He carried himself with such a quiet calmness and patience.
Many of you here have been blessed by the gifted hands of Duppy, whose name is also Ebert, which we must confess as grandkids were shocked to find out because we thought his birth given name was Duppy Duplessis. For his engineering services, we're sure his preferred form of payment being Brandewijn was greatly appreciated by all of you, as the going rate for brandy is far less than your typical mechanic. He always carried himself with a sense of swagger, which we think stemmed from this very cool hat and this pin that states, "Trust me, I'm an engineer." His confidence and his ability always reassured us that no matter what was broken, Duppy could fix it.
Ops was a braai master. If you were ever lucky enough to taste his potjie, rest assured you have tasted greatness. Despite the annoyance of my not eating red meat and robbing my family of lamb potjie, he was entirely supportive and not only accommodated me by making a chicken potjie, he made the best chicken potjie you'll ever eat. He also had a deep love for pasta, although we did find it quite amazing that even a 3-hour slow-cooked bolognese was in desperate need of an entire salt and pepper grinder for it to satisfy him. Another amusing anecdote is the way Ops prayed for us before every meal.
Amen.
I'm sure as grandkids will never understand the true meaning of whatever he meant, but we always ate good. Whenever we left these fabulous lunches, as we drove off, both him and Ohm stood in their driveway, waving until we were out of sight. We know that this is just one of the moments we will miss, and the image of him standing side by side with our Ohms will always be a memory we can look back on fondly.
One of the most admirable things about Oaks is the way he loves Ohms. Their love has set such a beautiful standard for all of us, and some of our happiest memories of Oaks teasing Ohms about something, the two of them playfully bickering while the rest of the family listened and laughed, waiting to see how it would unfold. Usually on Opa's defeat, poor guy never stood a chance. It was impossible to watch them without seeing that they were each other's best friends. Watching them taught us what a lifetime of love really looks like, and how happy you can be when you live life on the edge of a club.
Ops's final moments will stay with us for the rest of our lives. There was such an overwhelming abundance of love in one room. We held his hand, we thanked him, we told him we loved him, and we cried because we know that if love could have kept someone alive, Ops would have lived forever. Not everyone is given the gift of leaving this world wrapped in the love of their family. Our Opa was. And perhaps that is because he spent his whole life wrapping us in his.
Oops, we're going to miss you so much. We already miss hearing, "Hello, my girl," as we arrive for Sunday lunch. We'll miss your wheezy laugh. We'll miss your steady presence. We will miss you arriving with your toolbox in hand, ready to fix something we didn't even know was broken, which we wish we could do with our hearts right now.
We will carry your kindness in the way we treat others, your patience in the way we face life's challenges, and your joy in the way we laugh together as a family. And when we choose to love the people around us a little more deeply because of the example you set, that is where you will still be. Your life was a gift to all of us, and your love has shaped the family we are today.
Even in your absence, you continue to teach us. As painful as it has been to sit by your side until the end, perhaps the hardest lesson you've taught us is that love is stronger than loss. For that, and for so much more, we will be forever grateful. We know you're enjoying a cheeky Brandewijn with Koos Du Plessis and enjoying the Heavenly Hall of Fame alongside him. We miss you. We love you. Rest peacefully, Rose. I don't really know how to follow that. To say that writing this tribute was hard is an understatement. Oh God, I've got to get through 3 pages. Okay. How do I encapsulate a man of such significance in my life in just a few short minutes? It's near impossible. So I'm going to try and give you the highlights reel, and please excuse the jumbled thoughts, and I will be doing this in Engels, Wiki Engels, Wiki Afrikaans. My dad was an engineer to his core. He hated waste of any kind. Niks wat reggemaak kon word, is vervang nie. En die meeste van die tyd was hy succesvol. Although we did live with a broken dishwasher for a number of years, until my mom threatened to call a handyman to come fix it, the threat of another man getting paid for a job that he could do was too much to bear, and so it got fixed very quickly. Which brings me nicely to my second thought. My dad was notoriously frugal and always claimed that he had no money. The standing joke in our house was that if you asked my dad for money, he would open his wallet, and it didn't matter what time of the month it was. He would open his wallet and he'd go, "Kyk, ek het net R20 oor en ek moet nog petrol in die bakkie gooi." My Oma, his mother, used to say he had a deep nora, which is this thing in the back of your neck, little hole. You can feel for it right now. If it's deep, you're stingy. My dad had a deep nora. You could never take him for a ride. He knew too much and never accepted the first quote of anything. A gift he passed on to my brother and Rachel, not so much my mother and I. The best person to take with you to a mechanic or a hardware store. They never used to be able to pull one over him. But even though he did not spend or dish out money, my dad was one of the most generous people you have ever met. He was generous with his time, with his expertise, with his experience and possessions. He would do everything he can to help literally anyone who needed it. I'm sure many of you sitting here today has benefited from Dupi's assistance in some way or another, and as my daughter pointed out, would have had to pay for that privilege with a bit of Wilfberg. He was generous with his talents and indiscriminate as to who would benefit from them. Probably the quality that I admired the most in my dad was his total acceptance of others. He never judged and treated everyone with respect. This showed in how much he was loved by everyone he worked with, from the cleaner to the managing director.
My pa was altyd kalm. Niks kon hom rattel nie en hy het jongste geduld gehad. Ek onthou heeltemal te veel aande waar ek in trane sit terwyl my pa rustig wiskunde probeer verduidelik het. Die lang metode, no shortcuts. And that was my dad, hard working. He had a work ethic second to none. With the support of my mother, and while my brother and I were still very little, he did his engineering qualification whilst working a full-time job, and he still passed it cum laude. He loved life and he loved adventure. Nothing pleased him more than planning a road trip using a paper map, of course, and setting off in Susie and later his jeep with my mom and Dani and Linda to somewhere in South Africa. He travelled a bit overseas for work, and he always claimed that there was nowhere as beautiful as home, and why should he go anywhere else and rather explore the beauties of his own country. My dad was not great at verbally expressing his love, but we felt it in the million ways he shouldn't. Never with fanfare. I got coffee in bed every morning of my life until I left home. even on a Saturday morning when I didn't want it. Surprising me with my first car, totally out of the blue. It was my uncle's second-hand Mazda 323. Loved that car. Fixing or installing a myriad of things around our house, always with a happy demeanor. Pitching up for his grandkids' music recitals, even the recorder and the drum kit. Sports matches, concerts. After his stroke and his cancer diagnosis, one of the times that I saw my dad most upset was when he couldn't get to Jonty's rugby match. He loved his grandkids so much. And then lastly, the way he loved my mom. He showed me how a husband should treat his daughter and love his wife. He adored my mom and never denied her anything. They argued, for sure, but never for long, and always with my dad ending up saying, "Ah, poppy man." They say girls marry men like their fathers, and he certainly set an excellent example for me, and I feel I did that. I cannot believe he is gone. He promised that he would live until 108. So we were very unprepared for this. I know that this is the way of things, but gosh, this is really hard. I miss his cheeky grin, his zest for life, and the way he patiently and quietly loved me my whole life. Love you, Dad.
Ooh. This is a bit of a hard one to follow as well. As the youngest child, I obviously came very unprepared, as per normal. The see no papers, no hold or anything like that. I thought I was just bringing from that through. As you know, my dad and I share a name, and I just figured out I'm no longer junior. When I talk about Dad, I said this to Dad in a letter. The one positive about Dad being ill was the fact that I could talk to him and the last bit before he passed. And I wrote him a letter. And in a letter I said it was very difficult for me to separate Mom and him from one another. They came as a package, always came as a package. And as my sister alluded to, she sat there with the maths. I was a bit more of the sporty one. Dad will always be at the side of the sports field, watching quietly, having a cup of coffee, while Mom, on the other hand, was a little bit more vocal, if you want to call it that. Made her presence known quite clearly. But that's how they function, and that's how they work. There was no other way that the two functioned in a way. And Dad taught us these quiet lessons all the time. There was never somebody that was blatant about what he wanted to teach you. I think the reason why I'm an accountant was in 1986, if I can recall correctly. Dad sat myself and my sister down and went, "Here's an allowance, here's a book, you will write up everything that you spend. And at the end of the month, you had to tally things up, give the book to him. If you wanted an increase, you had to justify why you needed an increase. Needless to say, I got an increase every year. My sister, on the other hand, I think is still on the 10 allowance. And that's probably the reason why I'm an accountant as well. It was inbred into me. But yeah, it's difficult to say goodbye to a man that you've had in life for such a long period of time. And a friend of mine told me, soon after Dad died, he said, I never met your dad. He says, but I can see in the person who you are that your dad was a great person. And funny enough, in the letter that I wrote down, I said to him, you might not be around, but the legacy of you will continue in all of us. In me, in the grandkids, hopefully your kids, if you're going to have any. And that's the legacy that he used for us. But just also to, memories of Dad and myself and Mom. I see some of the shooting guys are here. Dad was part of the Highlanders, if I can remember, John, at one stage, which was a military shooting club in town. I was dragged to that with Dad, and it got a bit late. Dad had a couple more brandies than he should have. I was a minor, I didn't drink. And we got home, and Mom proceeded to have locked every single door. Everybody in the house, and Dad and I had to sleep in the car. It was really not my fault at all. But that's how Dad was. Shortly, another little anecdote was, shortly after Mel and I got separated, you know, you always find refuge at home, which I did. I was going to move in with my mom and dad again at the age of 32, I think it was, if I remember correctly. Being separated, I had a little bit of a wilder life for me, and every night when I got home, either the passage light was on, or Mom was sitting in the room waiting for me, watching TV, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. This went on for about 3-4 weeks, to which point Dad came to me one day and said to me, I think it's time you need to go. And I said, well, I don't have anywhere to go. He said, well, it's either you've got to leave or I've got to leave, and I've been here longer than you. So, shortly after that, I left. But that's just how Dad was. He taught you lessons without you really knowing that he's doing it. And it's a trait that he's passed on to everybody. And I must say, I look around this room, there's people I haven't seen here for years and years, and this room itself brings back memories of sitting right up there, I think, about 30 years ago. Donna used to sit down here, if I can recall, over there, sorry, yes. So there's a lot of memories that we share here. And one last story, which Mom will hate me telling, but this is really, really very true. And I think this was early 70s, I think TV just came out. Mom was a big wrestling fan. So, you know, those are the years of Jan Wilkins and Bruce here and you know, the proper Afrikaans wrestlers. So there was an American tag team coming out called the Stromberg Brothers. So Dad bought tickets for him and Mom to go to the Good Up Centre, if I can recall. Front row seats, as Mom deserved, backstage. Now, all of you who know my dad, it's about yay high, not the biggest guy in the world. But the Stromberg Brothers did some things to Jan Wilkins which Mom did not like. And as he came past, Mom thought, well, this is a good time to hit him with a handbag. Which he did. And all Dad did was sat there quiet. That is the patience of the man. So, he knew which battles to pick. So, you'll see all of us wearing these caps today. It's a cap I got Dad a couple of years ago. Yes, it was from Tina, by the way. On the badge on the side it says, trust me, I'm an engineer. And we had always had this standing joke in the house, who's more clever, engineers or accountants? I don't know who won that one. But I do know I didn't get the last equation wrong. He did. He said it was going to be another 28 years. We didn't factor in that little X that we couldn't figure out and work out. So I'm going to call this one a tie. But Dad will be missed. He was loved by everybody, loved by me. I had a lot of time and patience. He had a lot of time and patience for me, probably more than I deserved ever. I wasn't the easiest child. But yeah, you miss Dad, I love you. I love you too.
Eerstens wil ek net al die eer en die dank aan ons Hemelse Vader gee vir Toepie se lewe van 79 jaar. En ons geseënde huweliksjaar van 55 jaar. Hy was 'n wonderlike pa vir Almarie en Evert en 'n skoonpa vir Thomas. En 'n uitsonderlike oupa vir Ethan, Rachel, Kira, Julia en Jonty. En volgens die 8 van hulle kon hulle pa en hulle oupa net mooi niks verkeerd doen nie. En in hulle oë nie. En dat hy 'n regte MacGyver was, wat alles kon regmaak. En vir Toepie was hulle sy grootste liefde en trots. Toepie was 'n boerling van die Klein Karoo naamlik Oudtshoorn en het 'n stukkie hasenjag. Maar sy grootwordjare was meestal in de rust, waar hy skool gegaan het en in die koshuis gebly het en nie met afnaweek en vakansietye huis toe kon gaan. So sy liefde vir de rust was ongeken. Elke keer as ons in daardie omgewing was, moes ons eers deur die dorp bereik. Feitlik elke straat verken, sodat hy net kon sien dat alles nog goed gaan in sy dorpie. Toepie was waarlik 'n mens en het almal met respek en waarde behandel en almal oor een kam geskeer. Hy was altyd vriendelik, was baie lief om homself en grappies te maak. As iemand gevra het vir raad of om iets reg te maak, het hy dit met die grootste liefde gedoen. En indien hy nie kon, het hy uit sy pad gegaan om iemand of 'n plek te kry wat kon uithelp. Hy was ook uiters loyaal teenoor sy familie, gemeente, vriende, ons bure, sy skietklub, die manneklub van Constantia, die mense wat saam met hom by BND gewerk het, en ook die mense van Constantia Glen. Na sy beroerte kon hy nie meer so lekker kommunikeer met mense, maar sy niemandsin was nog steeds baie sterk. Veral as die woorde verkeerd uitgekom het, en hy het dadelik geweet dit is verkeerd, dan was dit vir hom die grootste grap wat hy kon gemaak. Dit was net vir hom net te snaaks gewees. Hy kon nie ophou lag. Met sy verblyf by Steptown in Tokai was hy baie gewild by die therapeute en by die teerders, want hy het met almal grappige manke gesels, net soos Toepie kon. Ek kan onthou dat nadat hy by die buitepasiënte afdeling van Steptown was, het sy nuwe fisio eendag gevra. Sy wil nie weet hoe lank hy by Steptown was, want waar hulle geloop word hy nie links en regs gegroet deur fisio's en teerders met die woorde van, hoe gaan dit met jou en ons mis jou baie. So man was Toepie. Maar nou moet ek net eintlik sê. Toepie was nie 'n goeie navigeerder. Dit was sy nemesis. Veral wanneer ons vreemde paaie gery het, met kaarte en al, het ons op een of ander manier verdwaal. Tot my grootste frustrasie en verdriet. Maar vir Toepie was dit net een lekker, veral omdat hy op die grondpaaie kon ry en dan was hy in sy element. En daarvan gaan Dani en Linda getuig. Hiermee wil ek afsluit. Toepie
Dankie vir ons wonderlike jaar. Van saam wees. Ons het vir warm klomsakke sout saam opgeëet. En ek dink ons het baie goed aan mekaar uitgekom. Ons gaan jou baie verlang. En ons gaan jou baie mis. Maar een ding weet ek verseker, dat ons eendag weer saam sal wees. Baie lief vir jou, en ek is ons verlede.
Ek het lus om te sê, wow. Wat julle kleinkinders vanmiddag gedoen het, was so spesiaal. En hier sit ook oupas. Klomp. En die vraag is, wat gaan jou kleinkinders en kinders aan jou doen sê? Dis die vraag wat ons almal moet lewe. En Ewert, kan jy asseblief jou ma se handsak net hou? Dit vang ek. Kom ons sing saam, en dan kom ons sing dit staande. Guide me, oh my great Redeemer. teks sal ons stilstaan. Toe sê Petrus, daar's een teks wat in die Tipiese Bybel onderstreep is. So ek reg onthou. Hy het vir my 'n foto daarvan gegee dat ek kan dit bewys. En dit was Jesaja 35. Maar, toe sê sy, en dit het nogal 'n druk op my geplaas, dit is El de Villiers se afskeidspreek gewees. Nou El de Villiers, julle wat hom geken het, hy kontoor met woorde. Ek nie. Maar, ek saam met jou, Pietro, en saam met Toepie opgewonde oor die teks. En ek kan nogal verstaan hoekom Toepie lief was vir daai teks. Want Jesaja 35 is seker die boek in die Bybel wat oor hoop skryf. En eintlik nie skryf nie, wat eintlik oor hoop sing. Wat eintlik om sê, God maak 'n verskil. Nou kom ons hoor die woord van die Here. Jesaja 35, ons lees daar vanaf die eerste vers. Laat die woestyn en die dorland hulle verheug. Laat die Araba, nou die Araba is so 'n skeur wat daar in Israel loop, juig en blom soos 'n tulp. Laat dit vele blom en juig. Ja, met gejuig en gejubel. Die heerlikheid van die Libanon word daaraan gegee. Die glansrykheid van Karmel en Saron. Hulle sal die heerlikheid van die Here, die glansrykheid van ons God sien. Maak die slaphande sterk, versterk die wankelende knieë. Sê vir die wat angstig is, hou moed, moenie bang wees. Kyk, hier is julle God. Die wraak kom, die vergelding deur julle God. Hy is die een wat sal kom en julle verlos. Dan sal die oë van die blindes oopgaan en die ore van dowes sal oopgaan. Dan sal 'n verlamde spring soos 'n wildspot en die tong van 'n stomme sal jubel, want in die woestyn sal waters uitbars, strome water in die Raba. Die uitgedorte grond sal 'n vleiland word, 'n dorsland vol waterbronne. Op die lekbed van jakkalse waar hulle gaan lê, sal daar grasbed, kalmoesriet en papyrus wees. Daar sal 'n gebaande weg, 'n pad wees. Die heilige pad sal dit genoem word. Onreines sal nie daarop verbygaan nie, maar dit sal vir die wees wat op die pad hou. Sotte sal nie daar rondwal. Daar sal geen leeu's wees en roofdiere sal nie daar kom nie. Hulle sal nie daar aangetref word. Die wat losgekoop is, sal daar langs gaan. Die wat deur die Here vrygekoop is, sal terugkeer. Hulle sal in Sion aankom met jubelkrete, met ewige vreugde sal hulle gekroon wees. Blydskap en vreugde sal hulle oorweldig. En verdriet en 'n gesig sal wegvlieg. Dit is die woord van die Here. Eintlik 'n stukkie woord wat amper half mysterieus klink. En 'n mens beleef die opgewondenheid van Jesaja. En eintlik wat Jesaja wil kom sê, waar God teenwoordig is, kan niks weer dieselfde bly. Ook nie die dood nie. Where God is present, nothing can stay the same anymore. Not even death. En dit is die boodskap van die Bybel. Dit is die boodskap wat ons op vandag kan hoor. Jesaja 35 indeed presents a vivid and uplifting picture of hope and restoration. It describes the transformation of desolate places into flourishing lands, symbolizing the blessing and joy that God's people will experience. The chapter emphasizes themes of redemption, healing, and the promise of joy for those who have been weary or troubled. It is a beautiful picture of God's people receiving His blessings. Nou, daar was 'n Russiese denker, Nicolas Berdyaev. Hy het 'n stelling gemaak wat my al baie aan die dink laat sit. Hy het gesê, "Death is the most profound and significant fact of life. The fact of death alone gives true depth to the question of the meaning of life. Life in this world has meaning just because there is death. If there were no death in our world, life would be meaningless. Wil jy verstaan? As dit nie vir dood was nie, sou die lewe geen sin en betekenis gehad het. Want op 'n sekere manier is dit juist die dood wat aan ons betekenis gee. Kyk 'n bietjie daarop. Dit is juist die dood wat betekenis opgee. En daarom moet ons ook vandag vir mekaar sê, die dood is die mees eintlike kenmerk van die lewe. Death is the most fundamental characteristics of life. Die mysterie van die dood lê nie primêr in die beëindiging van dit wat eens 'n lewende mens was. The mystery of death is not found primarily in the end of biological life, but in something deeper. And what is the something deeper? Rather, the mystery of death lies in all that has been lived, in a life that loved, experienced, conversed, wondered, and dreamed. En die kleinkinders en kinders gehoor, wat 'n mens by iemand se dood onthou, is jy sy of haar lewe. Is daar die kosbare oomblikke wat 'n mens dit ervaar het. Die mens was en is 'n besondere gawe van God. En vanmiddag kan ons die se lewe vier, omdat ons weet, op 'n besondere manier, het hy almal wat vandag hier sit aangeraak. Deur wie hy was, deur sy opregtheid, sy manier van lewe. En ek het vir die familie gesê, die tyd van Tobie se afsterwe, 'n boek wat my baie diep geraak het, is 'n boek van die godsdienstfilosoof of teoloog-filosoof Anton van Niekerk, waar hy skryf oor lewe en dood. En dit is seker een van die beste boeke wat 'n mens op jou rak kan lees. En dan beskryf hy in die eerste plek die dood as horison. The death is the horizon. Ons almal weet, daar op die horison, daar lê die dood. Vir julle wat nog jonk is, lê die horison daar aan die ander kant. Vir my horison lê hier. Ja, lê hier. Ons wat hier sit weet, dat ons horison is dalk 'n jaar, 2 jaar. Dis ook 'n, maar daardie horison laat jy met ander oë kyk na jou lewe. Daardie horison help jou om juist betekenis aan jou lewe te gee. Die naweek sit ek met my seun. Ons gepraat oor die pad vorentoe. En ek besef vir die gesprek, oor 9 jaar is hy 80. En dan was dit vir my so kosbaar, daai oomblik, ervaar ek hoe my seun die rol begin inneem van pa, ons wil vir jou sorg, ons wil vir jou daar wees. En dis die lewe. Want daar kom 'n tyd, wat ek moet besef en ek moet vir myself daarvoor gereed maak, daar kom 'n tyd, wat ek ook moet toelaat, dat my seun, my dogter, my versorg. Want in die sielkunde praat hulle mos van die parent, adult en child. Daar kom 'n tyd wat die parent ook besef, nou word ek child. En ek moet toelaat, dat my kinders ook vir my daar is. Die dood as horizon, die altyd daar. En dis juist daar die horizon, en daai prentjie was dit so mooi, wat die lewe inkleur, oor hoe ek oor die horizon dink, en daai horizon wat al hoe nader kom, beïnvloed op die oude, my denke oor God, en die lewe. Die tweede is, life is a journey on our way to death. Lewe is altyd die journey, al verdwaal ons ook soos te bied. En ek dink die Here lag ook lekker as jy sien hoe te bied verdwaal het. Dit beteken dat ek is so maar as Christus is mense. Nee. En die wonderlike is, op hierdie pad wat ons loop, verdwaal ons soms, letterlik en figuurlik. En op hierdie journey is ek baie te bewus van God en beteken glad nie bewus van God. En op hierdie journey leef ek beteken naam God, beteken ver van God. Maar die punt bly staan, en dit is die boodskap van die Bybel, God loop hierdie pad saam met my, of ek dit wil weet of nie, en of ek dit ontken of nie, God loop die pad saam met my, hy los my nie. Hy los my nie. En vir my bly dit een van die wonderlikste dinge, om oor en oor te kan sê, selfs vir diegene wat God vloek, God loop die pad met jou. Jy is nie alleen op die journey. Jy is nooit alleen. Al erken jy God nie, al ontken jy dat God daar is. Jy is met jou. Hy loop die pad met jou. En die derde plek, die dood as slot van die storie, of van die joernaal van die lewe. En dit is die begin van 'n nimmer eindigende storie. Ethan, jy het dit so mooi gesê, waar is Ethan? Ja, Ethan. Dit wat jy saam met jou oupa ervaar het, daar in die kruis, gaan jy nog die dag vir jou kinders vertel. En jou kleinkinders. Dit gaan nooit weg, nooit. En daarom kan ons vandag sê, ja, Tobias is oorlede, maar hy leef. Dis eintlik die begin van 'n nimmer eindigende verhaal. En daarom moet ons baie keer ook sê, en ek wonder nogal baie keer daaroor, oor die ewige lewe. Ons het baie keer hierdie prentjie van ergens daar in die hemel, en ons gaan soen toe. Miskien moet ons daar ook 'n slag verstaan. Die hemel is nie daar nie. Hier is die hemel. Ek en jy sit in die hemel. Ons is deel van die hemel. En God se teenwoordigheid maak dat ons iets van die hemel beleef. En die feit dat ons, dat ek kan dink om my oupa en ouma, en kan praat oor hulle, en van vriende wat dood is, en hulle kan sien en ruik en beleef, dat nou iets beleef van die ewige lewe. Die dood is eintlik 'n slot van 'n nimmer eindigende storie, wat nooit ophou nie. En dit laat my dink, seker een van die mees kosbare gedeeltes in die Bybel, is Johannes 11. Johannes 11 waar Jesus geroep word, om by sy vriend, Lazarus, wat sterwend is, besoek af te neem. En toe ek eintlik daar kom, toe die susters van Lazarus nogal omgedraai. Jy het jou tyd verspeel, hy is tussen dood. En so half sarkasties om te sê, wie die hel is hier om nou eens hier aan te kom? Ek sê dit is so 'n bietjie ingeteer, maar het is eintlik wat hulle bedoel, wat hulle wou sê. Wie die hel is jy om nou eens hier aan te kom? En dan gebeur daar iets aangrypend. Jesus sê vir hulle, julle dink vreemd oor die dood. Kom ek gaan vir julle iets anders belewenis van die dood gee. En dan gebeur daar iets wat vir my aangrypend mooi is. Jesus staan by die graf van Lazarus en hy huil, bitterlik. En wat wil iets kom sê Petro, en vir julle as kinders en dink, en dis ook julle hartseer, en wat vir my baie keer gehelp het om te verstaan, ek mag maar huil, ek mag maar. Maar dan, ken julle dit die verhaal van Jesus vir Lazarus opwek, en dan sê die volgende woorde, ek is die opstanding en die lewe. Wie in my glo sal lewe, al sterwe hy ook. En elkeen wat lewe en in my glo, sal dit alle ewigheid nooit sterwe. Tjoek, dit is kragtige woorde. Ek lees dit weer. Ek is die opstanding en die lewe, wie in my glo sal lewe, al sterwe hy ook, en elkeen wat lewe en in my glo, sal dit alle ewigheid nooit sterwe. En dan doen Jesus iets wat hy nooit gedoen het. Hy vra die volgende vraag. Hoe jy dit? En vanmiddag wil ek vir jou vraag, hoe jy dit? Glo jy dat God 'n betekenis aan ons dood kom gee? En wat ons eintlik vanmiddag ook kan sê, al sterwe ek ook, as ek die dood nie. Want dit is groot om te glo. En ek wonder baie daaroor, baie. Ek vir julle kleinkinders sê, my oupa is dood toe hy 12 jaar oud was. En my oupa was my hero. Na 60 jaar onthou ek hom nog steeds, toe hy toe kom. Hy het altyd in sy tuin, dit was baie verblomme, in tuinmaak. En dit altyd sy kalfvoet, het hy dit gelei, dit is sy pype opgerol, want hy het altyd 'n longe gedra. Dan ry hy daar grond. En sy liefde vir blomme, sy liefde vir mense, sien ek ook altyd. En in my lewe is die dood. En ek dink dis wat die teks vir ons wil sê. En vanmiddag kan ek vir julle as familie sê, Petro, Annelie en Ewert. Ja, pa is dood, maar hy lewe. Hy lewe. With God is present, nothing can stay the same anymore. Not even death. Not even death. Here, dankie dat ons vanmiddag kan sê dat niks meer dieselfde bly, niks wat u teenwoordig is. En dit kan ons sien in Doopie se lewe. Ons kan dit sien in die lewe van Petro en haar kinders en kleinkinders. Daar waar u teenwoordig is, gebeur iets. Iets kosbaars. En daarom kan ons vanmiddag op u vra, glo jy dit? Bely en sê, Here, ons glo. Ons glo in die ewige lewe. Ons glo dat u ons Vader is, dat u ons Verlosser is, dat u in ons woon deur die Heilige Gees. Ons glo dat u met ons op pad loop. ook deur ons dood heen. En dat ons daarom altyd met hoop en met geloof en met liefde kan leef. Amen. Ons gee geleentheid vir Thomas.
Not quite sure how to follow that. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming to Dupi's celebration of life. He touched so many lives, and it's so great to see so many of you here. For those who don't know, I'm Thomas Turk, I'm your favourite son-in-law. You probably heard and you probably picked up from everybody who's spoken that everybody was the favourite at some point. And that was Dupi. He made you feel heard, he made you feel seen, he made you feel important, and he made you feel valued. When you were with him, you were it, and what you were doing was to him. And in that moment, you were the favourite. And for me, that's Dupi's legacy. He often touched my life in many ways, technical repairs of stuff that just broke. Around my house, my car, my garden, my pool, my fence, my gates, my alarm, my garage, my intercom, my fence, the fence was a bomb, my pump, my borehole. There were a few other things as well. But often he would just come around and he'd have the right tools and he'd be able to fix it. And he always came with that amazing attitude. Nothing was not fixable. So on behalf of the entire family, thank you for being here today. Some of you have come from near and far. We appreciate that. Your kindness, your care, your support messages, lasagnas, they've carried us through this time. We'd also like to particularly thank and give heartfelt thanks to those who cared for Oupa Dup with such compassion and dignity in his final months, to the staff at Takai's Step Down, where Dup seemed to become a bit of a celebrity, as you heard before, probably because of the High Rocks training he was doing with Jamie the physio. He got great welcomes whenever he returned. To Tamlin, the speech therapist, who worked so patiently and got us through some epic conversations and laughter with Dup. I think Padakuk, which eventually we ended up eating pancakes, so rather than frog's cake, but he quite enjoyed that. Dr. James Gould, his exceptional care and wisdom, empathy for him was quite special in those last months. To the caring Sister Robin and the wonderful team at Chariot Health and their compassionate support. To Michelle, Everett's partner, who provided significant comfort when there was a myriad of drugs flying around, the knowledge and provided comfort for when we had no idea what tricyclomethamphetamine was, and gave us comfort in that. To Nozi and Rachel, the carers, and for Peter, who was there during the week. Your care, your walks with Dupi, with gentle presence, will always be remembered. Especially that Friday afternoon when Nozi sat with Dupi and lovingly read the Bible verse, which we were all around. It's the same verse that you see on the invitation. That was there. It was a profoundly beautiful moment and brought a lot of peace to all of us. We're deeply grateful for the difference all of you have made, not only to Dupi, to your entire family, to Patricia and the team from Constantia Funeral Home. Your respectfulness in our lowest moments is truly appreciated. To the Mana Medi Gabera, who did that great tribute with the ceremonial rifle salute. It was a fitting farewell that honoured many years of friendships and shooting at targets with Dupi over the years. To Ian, the organist, thank you very much. Dupi's listened to you many times, and thank you for being here today. Die gemeente van Constantia, aan elkeen van julle wat Dupi besoek het en Pedro ondersteun het, baie dankie. En Dupi, Hannes, thank you for the times that you've met with the family. Jou eerlikheid was vir ons groot troos en jou suiwer Afrikaans mooi uitdaging op my kinders. And finally, we thank God throughout this journey we've seen His hand at work, and through people and circumstances. And as much as it has been beyond our control, it's never been beyond His. He's carried us and cared for us, and reminded us of His faithfulness. To Him be the glory. Please stay and join us for lots of food. I don't think anybody will need supper tonight. For the people that have bought extra, thank you. Please, if you need to take some home with you, that's also okay. You don't need it here, they have to save for themselves. Thank you very much.
Dit is gepas om hierdie geleentheid af te sluit met die oorwinningslied. Kom ons sing dit staande en daarna sal ek vir ons die seëningspreek en na die seën gaan ons eerste geleentheid gee vir die familie om uit te beweeg en dan julle kan ontmoet net in die saal agter. Julle dit son stap na die saal toe en kom ons kuier saam en lees daar vir mekaar. en die liefde van God en die gemeenskap van die Heilige Gees by elkeen van ons wees. Soos u op die pad met u geloop het. Want uit u en deur u en tot u is alle dinge. Aan u behoort die heerlikheid tot in al die ewigheid. Amen.
Thank you.